Hello, everyone. Welcome to the International Women's Day podcast with me, Josephine. I'm a development professional with extensive experience working around the SDGs with various cultures and communities. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Paula Calderon. As many of us know, she's the CEO of Calgary Immigrant Women's Association, and she has held various leadership positions over a span of 20 years in various fields like education, leadership training and development. Today it is a great honor to have you with us on the show, Paula. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank
In
you.
addition to this, she's also a chair in the wing of G100, a global community of 100 women leaders from across the globe. So very excited to have you on the show, Paula. Once again, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josephine. Happy to be here.
So as we spoke a little bit earlier, this year's theme is IDW's theme is Inspire Inclusion. So, with that focus in mind, today our conversation is going to revolve around young girls, with a special focus on young girls,
Mhm.
and how, as a community, as a society, we can help them, or we can support them, or bring awareness about their needs, or any differences that they could face. So, with that note, this is the first question that I wanted to ask you. So, what would you like to say to a young girl in the society who feels who feels very indifferent, or who's very doubtful about her own capabilities, who feels very insecure or even scared? What would you tell to her?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I would say is you matter. Your voice is important. And if you are feeling that way, you're probably in the wrong place and with the wrong people. So it's always very important to search for those people who actually uplift you and not those that bring you down. And I think sometimes when we're young, we tend to settle to who's around us. So maybe it's important to try to seek opportunities and support and help from those that can help uplift us and show us how much we matter, because every young girl is very important.
Very well said. The environment we are in and places we hold in our families, even in society, plays a huge role on how we think and how we value ourselves. So that's a well said point. Thank you. And yeah, before the second question, I would like to bring in a personal reference from my own life. That one of the major reason that why I feel so connected towards women empowerment is because of my mom. So ever since I was small, she used to read to me from our literature, a lot of poems and quotes about women empowerment, stories and essays on it. So she's even trained me to do the same in schools. So I feel so blessed to have that kind of connection that I she helped me to establish. On that note, I would like to ask: is there a favorite quote that you had from your young age about women empowerment?
Yeah. So it's interesting, Josephine, because your experience is very different to mine. I
Okay.
actually didn't even think about women empowerment or gender inequality until I was older. I was an adult.
Yeah.
I think through my life, what I did was see a lot of those inequalities, but never really questioned them. So if I were to, until later in life, if I were to think about what quote from my young life, I don't think I was paying enough attention.
Okay.
I do have lots of quotes from now that I'm focused on this type of work, and I'm very interested in the topic. One of them, I mean, despite having a lot of internal conflict with the word empowerment, because I think, I mean, we could dice that up in many ways, but essentially, I once heard a quote saying, "Empowered women empower women." And I like the concept behind it. I'm not a very big fan, as I said, of the word empowerment, because it kind of has a connotation that someone is coming from a place of not having any power, right? And then you're giving them the power. And that I have a conflict with. But ultimately, I mean, to me, empowerment more than a thing or a concept is a feeling, right? And I liked that one specifically. But yeah, no, it's interesting because I wish I had had this interest or had been educated in a way that looked into empowering women and women inequalities and gender inequalities. But it was later on through life that I started seeing, understanding, and being interested in this topic.
In a way, what you said kind of resonates with my own life experience because you said empowered women, empower women. It's kind of the same word my mom did to me. And I hope conversation like this go out and do the same for people
Yes.
who might need that extra boost of support, energy in whatever they're going through.
Yeah. So the concept behind it is that, right? It's like if you can and you're in a position, you should be supporting and helping others. And that's the way it works. That's the way you
Exactly.
can actually make a difference.
True, true. Thank you. Thank you for quoting that. On this note, okay, since we're discussing about young girls, and as they're growing up, they are in school, they are in colleges, and they are in other spaces where they learn a lot of things, and I feel that as a society too, they come across a lot of challenges in their everyday life. It could be many different forms. So what would what would you suggest uh, for us? What would you suggest some of the coping mechanisms or the ways that these young girls can take up those challenges and navigate through them towards a more successful future?
Yeah. So I don't know how this is going to sound, but I'm going to say my big thing is challenge the challenge.
Okay, that's very interesting.
I mean, I love challenges. I think you and I were talking just a while ago, and I was telling you I actually love change. I know a lot of people that are very afraid of change, and I actually look for change on a regular basis, right? Because to me, it's all about evolution. And I don't think I ever settled with anything. I always challenged every single challenge, and I think girls have to do that. Don't settle for stereotypes. Just because that's the way it is not an answer, right? If it's not working for you, then what can you do? And I mean, I think a big thing I tell both my young women, girls who are my daughters right now, and I tell all the women I work with is you have the power to change things, right? Don't be a victim of situations. And that victim effect is so prevalent among many people. Is like, oh no, the situation it has me like this, or the situation, or everything is external. All the factors are external factors that are oppressing me or not letting me do what I do. And yes, sometimes there are systemic barriers that you need to search for support and help. So not always you have the solution, but you do have the opportunity to seek help, right? And to search for a solution. So just don't settle. Always challenge whatever is happening, whatever is going on. Why is it happening? And what can I do to fix it, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's looking for someone else to help you fix it or fixing it yourself.
This reminds me of my own life experience. So I like change, but sometimes when you face challenge, it kind of scares you at times. You can't look at it in the eye right away, right? So I should say that, like, since we also talk about he for she a lot of times, I should also mention that a lot of times when I felt like, okay, I'm going down a rabbit hole and I don't know what I'm gonna do next, and I felt everything's kind of very scary and challenging to navigate suddenly, especially after my maternities and after I had my baby. It was a very different period. So at that time, my partner Charles is one such person who helped me. He kind of pushed me to face the challenge.
Nice.
He didn't make it easy, but instead it said you gotta do something. You can't just blame the situation. So yeah, there's maternity, there's life, there's a lot of things, but you gotta go ahead.
Yeah.
You gotta push yourself and make way, and that's how you gotta do things. So in a way, challenges does help us grow. I completely
Absolutely.
agree on that. It's great to find that flow within ourselves, or even to find someone that can help us to challenge it and move forward. In that case, that brings us to the next question. So what would you say, or what do you think about the families? So we talk about the society as a level. But when we come to the family level, the girls could be facing challenges right from within their family members, or sometimes it must be difficult for the parents to understand what the children is up to. So in those kind of situations, how do you think parents can make an effort to understand where the girls are coming from?
Mm. Oh yes, I mean, and especially in my line of work, when we're working with newcomer families, so multicultural families coming from different parts of the world into one society and a new culture for them,
Yeah.
we find a lot of issues with that, because also, especially after a period of time, the children are now growing in a culture and in a society that is different to the culture and society that the parents were used to, or the culture that they have at home. And it challenges their values, and it challenges their beliefs, and it challenges a lot of what they didn't have challenged before, but now they face challenges here. And children, of course, start questioning things. And
Exactly.
it's very, very important to have an open mind. It's not a black and white thing. It's actually okay. Let's understand where they're coming from, and let's come together to find a good middle ground for all of us, right? But
Okay.
I would say for that, it's if things are getting too complicated, look for help. So at CWAP, for example, we have programs like cross cultural parenting, which is
Okay.
a program that supports families and parents with parenting children in a different culture, right?
Yes, very interesting.
It is, yes, I know, and it's something that is very common and it's normal, but ultimately we're now settling and living in a different culture, in a different society, and while everyone should be able to keep their beliefs and their values, there has to be a little bit of flexibility and adapting to the new environment. So getting help to come together and understand what children are challenging and why they're doing that, and being very open to having those conversations is very important.
So having an open mind is the key.
100%.
I
Yes.
agree. I totally agree. Yeah. So from young girls, we are slowly going out into the adulthood as women, as they transition from young girls and they go into a workplace, and that's a different kind of challenge to them. When it comes to organizations, hiring especially students right from universities, post-secondary institutes, do you think there could be some kind of program or policies that companies could keep in mind
Mhm.
to accommodate this transition and encourage them into a more successful career?
Hmm. Absolutely, and there are some companies that do a great job in on that, and there are others that don't, because they haven't thought about it, and they expect people to just sort of integrate and hit the ground running. And support is super important. I mean, you don't want to miss out on some very valuable skill sets just because there is no opportunity to integrate
Mm.
smoothly into the workplace. There are policies, there are programs, there are procedures that are really important to keep in mind for that. But from the get go, also having, I mean, to me, peer mentorship is super important. Having someone that you trust and that I mean, is not intimidating in the workplace, and you can ask the questions that you wouldn't ask of your boss, for example, is a really good way for companies to help people integrate, right, in a non-intimidating, non-threatening way. So having a mentorship program to support the integration of new employees into the company, I think, is a really good model. I worked with a very similar model years ago, where we had internships, paid internships for newcomers or for recent graduates.
Okay.
And part of the mandated structure of the internship meant that every intern had to have a mentor within the organization.
Oh, that's
And that was
wonderful.
their go-to person, right? And that
Yeah.
was the secret to success of that program. for sure.
That's wonderful. I always believe in the power of mentorship,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're new to the ground
A hundred
and you don't
percent.
know anything. Having a good mentor goes a very long way.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for mentioning that. So now we are moving into a set of questions that revolve like around your personal experience. So the first question is, have you ever come across an experience where you felt the gender inequality in the workplace, or have you ever had an experience where you've been treated differently just because you're a woman?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had that experience?
Yes, what woman hasn't? I think unfortunately, every woman has experienced that. Um, I mean, it depends on the context and the setting that you're in. I've worked in several industries. I mean, in the non-for-profit industry, we it is heavily dominated by women, I think, and there's a little bit of more equality in that field. But I've also worked in the corporate world, and I've also worked in other countries, and you see a lot of that, unfortunately. And you see women having to work a lot harder and
Hmm,
do more things to just demonstrate their value, which is really unfair, right? Because
it
it's
is.
not granted to you. You kind of have to prove yourself, which is good in a way, as I said, because challenges are good, right? And we just
Yeah.
talked about that. Challenges just make us who we are, and if we didn't have them, then we wouldn't be able to stand out.
Mm.
But it is hard. It is tiring, and at some point you have to question the fairness of it all, right? We've all had to work a lot harder. We've all had to challenge the stereotypes in the roles that women play, both in the workplace and in the family context. So yeah, I mean, you said you had a very supportive partner. I've been very fortunate to have that as well, but it came with challenging a lot of stereotypes,
Exactly.
even
I agree.
internally, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we believe those stereotypes. So I've I find one of the most challenging things for women who are successful in the workplace are to get over their guilt. You feel guilty because you have focused on your career and, oh, could I have given more time to my kids, to my family, right, to my husband?
Mm.
And I don't think men feel that or think about that,
Yeah.
right? Some might, but honestly, I think it's a very innate women thing where we feel guilty for not doing what the stereotype said we should be doing.
Yeah, and it never goes right. It stays with you.
It
Part of
stays
it,
with
at
you. We
least.
are constantly battling that, no matter how much we say we're not. I think we're, at least I could speak from my own experience, have not stopped battling that
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
that
have it
internal
too.
voice.
Yes. Yeah. No matter what how much ever you try, it's always there.
It's always there.
I've been through that, and then it's like, you know what? I'm not even gonna fight about it anymore. So
Yeah.
if it's gonna be there, okay, you be there. I'll just be on
You
with the
be there and
feeling.
I'll get over you. I have to,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't matter. My husband has been extremely supportive of every single thing I've wanted to do. And I set crazy goals for myself, and he's like, go for it. But then my internal voice is like, oh, but look at what you're doing. Look at what you're sacrificing. You should be doing something else. And then, well, get over it and move
Yeah.
on.
Move on. That's right.
Yes.
Okay. So for our next question, so I wanted to ask you: is there any person from your whole life experience that you look up to, as somebody who motivated you or changed your life, or has been a mentor who had a huge influence on your empowerment?
Yes. So, I mean, this is going to sound very cliche, but I'm going to go back to my mom, of course,
Okay.
because it was observing her experience and her overcoming the gender challenges and gender barriers and her strength that made me start to think. When I started realizing what she had done, it made me start thinking about what I can do, right? And how
Yeah.
much more I can do in this field. But ultimately, after that, and I would say I've been very fortunate in my professional life to have some incredible women leaders
Mm.
be my role model, right?
Okay.
So the women I worked for in the past made me aspire to be like them. And
Okay.
they also were the women that uplifted me and cheered me on and told me I could do it. And then I started believing. So
Oh,
I
that's
didn't
wonderful.
believe it until I heard it. And I heard it from women that I used to work for or work with. And that is, we can't underestimate the power of that, right? So
Yeah.
it's admiring someone and having that someone support you is something that is really, really enriching and empowering and uplifting, and it's a real confidence boost for sure. So I've been very fortunate to have, throughout my career here in Canada, to have some excellent women leaders that made me want to do better and made me believe I could.
That's very inspiring, and it gives us the confidence and belief that we all can empower each other
Other.
in a very unique way, and we could together create a very strong society.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So yes, the last question for the
Hmm.
interview. Thank you for your patience and
Oh,
beautiful
no.
answers. So the last question is this is a fun question. So if you go back, if you get a chance to meet a 16-year-old Paula, what would you tell her? Or what do you think she would ask you? Would you be happy to see her? What would be it like?
I would tell her many things, but I think the first one is don't worry, everything will be okay. I used to be a worrier. I used to worry about
Okay.
everything and get very stressed out and want things to happen quickly. And
Okay.
I think, I mean, I would have paced a little bit more knowing what I know now. Um, I would tell her every challenge is just going to make you stronger and
Mm,
work harder. And lastly, this is something that I just started thinking about a few days ago. When, I mean, when you're managing people and working with others, and even as a mother, talking to my children and what they're going to do and what they want to do, everyone talks about um, purpose, right? And
purpose.
being passionate about what you do, right? So, but what I started reflecting on is that always have to be you don't always have to do what you're passionate about,
Exactly.
but you do have to get passionate about what you do,
Yeah,
right?
that's a hard part.
Well, but the thing is, if you can't get passionate about what you do,
Mm,
then you're in the wrong place.
yeah,
Look for something else, right?
that's right.
Don't sit back. Once again, don't be the victim. Don't sit back and say, I hate this, I hate my job, I come in every day and I don't like doing what I do. What are you doing about it, right?
Yeah,
What are you going to change for yourself? It's not dependent on others. It can't be dependent on others, right? Now, if you can get passionate about what you do, then you're in the right place. That's your purpose, right? But
yeah.
we always go to see, okay, what am I passionate about? And that's what I want to do. Life doesn't always work that way. There's some very fortunate people who are able to do that, but really that's a handful. You have to, every time I've worked on something, on a project, in an industry, whatever it is, I try to get passionate about what I'm doing. If I can't do that,
And it's not the right
it's
one
not
for
the right
you.
place. It's not the
Exactly.
right place.
That's very insightful, because oftentimes even I come across the same crossroads about taking up a project or doing this activity, or I would have an idea in my head for almost 2 years, 3 years, but I would still not be completely confident about taking the next step, because somewhere you would feel like, okay, I do this, but I would not be completely passionate about this.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'll think like, okay, maybe just wait and see if this is the right thing,
Yeah,
and then often turns out to be that's not the right
that's not the
option
right
for
thing.
us.
Mm.
So very grateful to have that intuition.
No.
And thank you for referring that back. So
Yes.
that brings us to the end of the interview today. Thank you
Aw.
so much for this heartwarming interview. Every answer that you mentioned today, along with your own story and experiences, is like a burst of inspiration plus a reality check and a lot of takeaways for each and every person who's gonna listen to that. So thank you so much for this, and thank you so much for taking the time amidst your busy schedule and
My
for
pleasure.
spending it with me on this podcast. Thank you once again, and uh, let's wish everyone a very happy International Women's Day.
Absolutely. Happy International Women's Day. Let's celebrate each other.
Celebrate each other. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you, Josephine. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.